Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something that you do every day,
Yeah,
but you probably don't give it a second thought. Letting your mind wander.
it's more powerful than you think.
I think so, too. And we've got a great book to guide us through this, Andrew Smart's Autopilot.
Excellent book.
It is. And we've also got some really cool insights from a scientific discussion on YouTube. It's on the channel, Center for Science and Society. So are you ready to, uncover the science and importance of mind wandering?
Absolutely. I think it's like discovering a hidden universe in our minds.
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, so first things first. Andrew Smart uses this term, the brain's dark energy.
Right.
What is that?
Well, it's kind of like, when you're not really doing anything, but your brain is still like super active.
Yeah.
Like the universe is full of this mysterious dark energy that we don't fully understand.
Right.
Our brains are using a ton of energy, even when we're not like focused on a task.
So it's like they never really switch off.
Exactly. Smart even says that something like 90% of the brain's energy is used for this ongoing activity.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is, and he compares it to like a kitchen or the dishes wash themselves.
Okay, so what's actually going on in our brains during these moments? Like what's happening?
There's a specific network in the brain called the default mode network
Yo,
or the DM.
India, man.
Yeah, it's like the brain's autopilot.
Oh, interesting. So it just kicks in when we're not focused on something.
Exactly.
So what about when we are focused?
When we are focused, that's where the task positive network comes in, or the TPN.
The TPM. Okay.
And you can think of it like the get stuff done network.
Okay, got it.
It's active when we're concentrating, making decisions, really thinking hard.
So is it like these two networks are always kind of battling it out? Like one's on, one's off?
That's a great way to put it. They are actually, we call it anti-correlated.
Okay, coily.
So that means when one is active, the other one is suppressed. So when your DMN is humming along, your TPN is taking a break.
Right.
And vice versa.
Okay, so that makes sense because sometimes it's so hard to daydream when you're stressed out.
Exactly, because your TPN is working overtime trying to keep everything under control.
So what happens if we just ignore our DMN? What if we're always on, always focused?
Well, Smart argues that that can actually be pretty harmful to us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he thinks that constant busyness actually hurts our ability to tap into all the amazing things that mind wandering can do.
Oh, wow. And we're going to get into all that good stuff. But first I want to know, when our minds are wandering, what's happening in our brains?
So Smart has this really cool analogy. He describes the key areas of the brain that are involved in the DMN as like hub airports.
Other airports.
Yeah, lots of activity and traffic going through them when our minds are wandering.
Okay, so which parts of the brain are we talking about here?
Well, there's the precuneus, which is all about self-reflection.
Okay.
Helps us understand, our place in the world.
Yeah.
And then there's the lateral parietal cortex, which is really important for, forming our sense of self, our identity.
Okay.
And, of course, the hippocampus is in there, too. That's the memory center.
Yeah.
It's busy pulling up past experiences and weaving those into our daydreams.
It's like our brains are making a movie for us.
Right. And we've also got the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, which it helps us detect errors and might even be searching for solutions to problems in the background.
Wow, it's like multitasking on another level.
It really is. And then finally, there's the medial prefrontal cortex, which helps bring information into our conscious awareness.
So it's not just random thoughts bouncing around.
No, there's a lot of complex stuff happening behind the scenes.
Wow, that's amazing. But, okay, I gotta ask, why should we care about all this? Why is it so important to let our minds wander?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's what we're going to explore next. Mind wandering is not just spacing out, it's actually crucial for our well-being, our creativity, and even our sense of self.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's dive in.
Welcome back. We're continuing to explore this dark energy.
The brain's dark energy.
Yeah, exactly. That power of mind wandering.
And you know what? My mind is already wandering to all the benefits.
Right. There are so many.
There are. Like creativity, for one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, have you ever noticed that your best ideas seem to come when you're not even trying?
All the time. It's like when I'm relaxed, that's when the magic happens.
Exactly. And Dr. Christoph, her research actually shows that the DMN helps us make these like unexpected connections between ideas.
Like putting together a puzzle, but you didn't even know you were working on a puzzle.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's what creativity is all about, right? Connecting those dots in new ways.
So when we let our minds wander, we're actually like setting the stage for these aha moments.
Exactly. It's like planting seeds for creative breakthroughs.
I love that. But it's not just about coming up with new ideas.
No, not at all.
Like Andrew Smart, he also talks about how mind wandering helps us understand ourselves better.
Yeah, he does. It's like taking a mental inventory,
Right.
reflecting on your experiences and figuring out what makes you tick.
Okay, so it's like introspection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those insights can be so valuable, right?
Oh, yeah.
They help you make better decisions, navigate those tricky situations in life.
It's like having a built-in GPS for life.
I like that. But there's a catch.
What's the catch?
If we're constantly bombarding ourselves with information, with tasks,
Yeah.
we're basically silencing that inner voice.
It's like trying to have a conversation in a really noisy room, like you can't even hear yourself think.
Exactly. And as Smart says, that can be really detrimental to our well-being.
So we need to like turn down the volume.
We do create space for those quieter, more introspective moments.
And what about those times when like you're mind wandering and you just end up in a negative thought spiral?
Right.
That happens. It does. Is there anything we can do about that? Like how can we steer it in a more positive direction?
That's a great question, and it's something that Dr. Christoph actually addresses in her research.
Okay.
She emphasizes that mind wandering in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing.
It's like a tool, right?
Exactly.
It can be used for good or bad.
It depends how you use it. And while we can't always control what pops into our heads,
Right.
we can learn how to manage our reaction to those thoughts.
So like instead of getting caught up in them, we can just like observe them and let them pass.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that mindfulness.
Mindfulness, yeah.
Becoming aware of your thoughts without letting them sweep you away.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But sometimes it feels like the harder you try to not think about something, the more it sticks around.
It's true. And Dr. Christoph actually found that trying to suppress thoughts can make them even stronger.
It's like that saying, what you resist persists.
Exactly. So acceptance is key.
Acceptance. Okay. So we've talked about the science, but what about like the psychological perspective on all of this?
Right. Well, that's where the work of Dr. Lawrence Brown comes in.
Okay.
He's a psychoanalyst, and he sees mind wandering, or reverie as he calls it,
Reverie.
yeah, as a really valuable tool for understanding the unconscious mind.
Oh, interesting. So like those random thoughts that pop up might actually be telling us something deeper.
Exactly. He even shares a story about one of his patients who used mind wandering during therapy to gain insights into his fear of intimacy.
Wow. So by paying attention to our thoughts, we can unlock hidden truths about ourselves.
It's like a treasure hunt within our own minds.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
But it's not just the patient who's doing the exploring, right?
Right. Dr. Brown also points out that the therapist is using their own mind wandering.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to try to connect with the patient's unconscious.
Wow. So it's like this, like two minds working together.
It is. It's this beautiful dance exploring the depths of the subconscious.
This is all so fascinating. But, you know, I also want to know, like, how do we actually make space for mind wandering in our busy lives? Like, it's hard.
It is hard, and that's where Alex Peng's concept of deep play comes in.
Deep play. Okay, tell me more about this.
So Peng basically argues that engaging in hobbies, activities that are just like intrinsically rewarding,
Yeah.
that's crucial for recharging our creative batteries.
So it's not just like vegging out on the couch.
Not necessarily. It's about actively pursuing things that you enjoy, that make you feel curious.
Okay.
He calls it deliberate rest.
Deliberate rest.
Yeah, it's a way to engage your mind, but in a different way than work does.
I like that a lot. You know, there's that saying like, work hard, play hard.
Right.
Maybe you should be rest hard too.
Exactly. And Peng actually challenges that whole 10,000-hour rule.
One about how it takes 10,000 hours to master something.
Yeah, he says it's not just about practice, it's also about rest.
Okay, so what are some examples of deep play? Like what kinds of things can we do?
Well, it really depends on the person, right? But
Yeah.
it can be anything from like playing music
Great.
to gardening to hiking.
Oh, yeah. Being out in nature.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about finding those activities that allow you to lose yourself in the moment.
Like you get into a flow state.
Exactly.
Time just disappears.
And those activities, they're so beneficial for us, both mentally and physically.
In what way?
They can reduce stress. They can help us focus better.
Okay.
They can even boost our immune systems.
Wow. So many benefits just from allowing ourselves to play.
It's almost like a superpower that we've forgotten we have.
Totally. And it's not just about like giving our minds a break.
Yeah.
It's also about nourishing our souls.
Yes, it is. It's about rediscovering that joy of doing things just for the pure pleasure of it.
Not for some end goal,
Exactly.
just the experience itself.
And that joy, it can be contagious. It can inspire us to approach all areas of our lives with more creativity, more passion.
So the question is, what are you passionate about?
Exactly. What activities make you feel truly alive? What brings you joy?
That's a really great question to think about. This whole deep dive has been amazing. It's really opened my eyes to the power of mind wandering and this deep play. But before we wrap up, I'm actually curious to hear like your personal experience with this.
Well, I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've realized that
Yeah, I'm curious too.
like some of my most fulfilling moments come when I'm doing things that just let my mind wander.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Well, like I've always loved being out in nature.
Yeah,
It's like a total reset for my brain
I agree.
when I'm like hiking or even just walking in the woods. My thoughts they flow so easily.
Yeah,
And I often find myself coming up with like new ideas or solutions to problems I've been struggling with.
I can totally relate to that. Like nature had this way of just like quieting all the noise,
Yeah.
and then you can actually hear yourself think.
It's like the trees are whispering secrets to us.
Ooh, I like that a lot. So it's not just about being physically active. It's about being in an environment that lets your mind do its thing.
Exactly. And for me, it's also about creative stuff like writing or playing music.
Oh, yeah.
Those things, they use a different part of my brain. It's
Yeah.
like I can express myself in a way that I can't in everyday life.
It's like giving your mind a playground.
It really is. And sometimes, like, the best discoveries happen when you're just playing around.
Experimenting.
Yeah, just experimenting, no goal in mind.
It reminds me what Dr. Christoph said about how creativity needs both spontaneous thought and defocused attention.
Yeah, it's like this dance between the two.
Right, you got to find that balance.
Exactly. And this kind of brings us back to Dr. Ledoux's ideas about managing those negative thoughts, the anxiety.
Right.
He actually suggests that, like, understanding how the brain works during mind wandering can help us cope better.
Okay, how so?
Well, he has this 3-step approach
Yeah.
that targets different areas of the brain. The first step, he says, is to tame the amygdala.
The amygdala. That's the fear center, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's about like calming down that initial panic response.
Exactly, so you can think clearly.
Yeah.
And then he says to target the hippocampus,
Okay, the hippocampus.
which, is all about memory and forming those schemas.
So it's like rewriting those negative stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And the last step, he says, is to tame the prefrontal cortex.
Okay, that's the CEO of the brain, right?
Yeah, it's all about higher level thinking, self-awareness.
So it's like taking control of your thoughts.
Exactly, choosing more empowering narratives.
I like that. So basically by understanding the science, we can actually take charge of our mental health.
Yeah, it's about harnessing the power of our minds to create a better experience for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, before we wrap up this deep dive, is there anything else, any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I think like the big takeaway here is how can you bring more mind wandering, more deep play into your life?
Right.
It's tough, I know, with our busy schedules.
It is.
But as we've seen, it's so worth it.
It is. So maybe next time you have a few free minutes, instead of like scrolling on your phone, just close your eyes, let your mind wander,
Take a walk, no destination in mind.
or pick up that old hobby you haven't done in a while.
Exactly.
It's about finding what feeds your soul,
It is, and
Yeah.
tapping into that incredible power that we all have within us.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. I know I'm going to be thinking about this a lot
Me too.
and, making some changes in my own life to make more time for this.
Yeah, me too.
So I encourage everyone listening to do the same. Explore the sources, try out some deep play, and just see what happens when you let your mind wander.
You might be surprised.
Totally. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And until next time, happy wandering, everyone.